Preseason training just gotten underway for TIU women's soccer. Here with head coach Patrick Gilliam. Coach, your team's been to 3 straight NAIA tournaments now, defending CCAC tournament champs, but you're coming back with a little less firepower, losing your top 2 scorers from last year. Obviously, it's very early in the preseason process, but what are some of your thoughts going into the 2016 season here?
Yeah, we've talked to the players a little bit, even Greg, and I think we're just a day in, so we've not even been on the field yet. We're a younger team. We go from being a team that was had a senior class of 9 players, and many of those, I think 7 were starters. And so you had a lot of veteran players on the field, players who had been through the wars, so to say, and a very accomplished senior class. It's not to say our younger players that are back, some of them didn't contribute greatly last year. But I think many of those players, not all, but many of those players were probably in a depth type role. They provided the depth that enabled us to be such a good team, whether that's in training, giving us key minutes in matches. What's happened now is there's kind of a passing of the baton where they go from being players who provided the depth and the competitiveness in training to make us a top-notch team, to where they're the players now they're going to be counted on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Saturdays on the field. And so that's a transitional type thing. It's not an impossibility. We've always felt that last year's freshman class, that class had a lot of similarities when we first brought them into the class that graduated last year. So we saw some of the same character traits and some of the same skill level, but their role changes now. And so you're asking, it's much like I think when last year's senior class won their first CCAC conference title as sophomores. That team was 5th in the conference in the regular season, so some of the players you mentioned that graduated, when they won that CCAC title in penalty kicks as sophomores, they were a team that in the regular season was 5th place in the conference. So I don't remember what our record might have been going into the playoffs, but we were a team that was growing, and those young players were growing into those roles. And so I think that that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at a team with just a few seniors, not too many more juniors, but a predominantly freshman and sophomore team. You can rest on some of the tradition and success of the past because it creates a mindset and a culture of excellence, but you can't act entitled and believe that past successes are just going to automatically win you success down the line. So this team's going to have to really think about how they transition into those new roles. And so, but I told him yesterday, and I think it's a great kind of answer to your question. I said, I'm a coach, as your coach, I'm coaching who's here now. I'm not coaching who was here in the past. And that's no disservice to our past group. Boy, what a legacy that class left. But they themselves would tell you it would be foolish for me to try to coach players that have graduated and moved on. What we do is we remember their legacy. We remember the example they set. We learn from that. And then we now, as a new group, go after it this season. So,
with this new group, and as you said, you haven't taken the field yet. Today's first day for practice. You still probably have a rough idea of the starting 11 in your head that you're kind of expecting. As you think about that, what are some of the aspects that you think are going to be strengths for this team, and some things you think as a unit they're going to need to work on? And with that, are there any players that kind of stick out to you as far as that maybe didn't get a lot of playing time last year, or maybe some incoming freshmen, or someone that you think the fans should kind of keep their eye on?
I think when you lose 7 starters, you're kind of hitting all parts of the field, and so we pretty much, have that transition not just in one area of the field, but in multiple because of the high number of graduating players. I think if you look just statistically, we probably were hit hardest in the offense, in the attack. And that happens when you graduate, some people who have not just been solid scorers, but top scorers in the conference, top scorers in the history of our program. And so you graduate multiple players in that. And I think putting the ball in the net will be not a challenge for us, but it will be, in the past, it's been, attacking has been kind of second nature to us. And it was, if you look at last year, when we really coupled the strong defending with the good natural attack we had and the number of attacking players we had, it really came together nicely, I think, last year. I think if there's one thing that probably a stability piece that's returning, might be us defensively, and I don't necessarily just speak to the back line, Greg. I would say just team defensively. I think we became, in both programs, ironically, last year, a team that really took a lot of pride in its defense, kind of built from the back forward. The women had a goals against average below 1 for the whole season. I think we never gave up 3 goals in a game until the conference playoffs, ironically. In a game we won, we got into a little bit of a shootout, but we gave up 1 or 2 goals or posted a shutout most of the time, 0 or 1 goals in almost the majority of our matches last year. And I think that's more become kind of a mindset that, and that's something we can really draw on. And we returned Michelle Ortiz, who was a center back for the last 2 years, started, was a part of those previous teams, but she returns as a junior captain now. And then someone like a Sarah Schufert. I think Sarah Schufert was a young lady, suffered some injuries last year and is actually kind of dealing with some nagging things now, but Sarah's a player we've always seen a lot in, and at times last year really showed her capabilities, and I think she'll be asked to step up and into a role. I think Jillian Colster, Jillian, it's kind of hard to say she's coming out, her coming out party, so to say, because she had 10 goals last year as a freshman, but I think her role and her importance increases. And Isabel Danner, another freshman from last year who saw minutes, contributed, but I think it's just, again, it's kind of asking that young group to take the next step. Heather Ortiz, Michelle's sister, great minutes off the bench in nearly every game. I would say she got into most games, 20, 30, 40 minutes sometimes. But now she steps into a much more prominent role. So you kind of see my answers coming together. There's capable, competent players, but they're going to be asked to really not just, when I say take on a different role, it's not so much different position on the field, it's supplemental player to primary player. And so, freshmen, we have McKenna Walker coming from California to play for us, and excited about her. And Tori Padel, who's a local player from Huntley High School. Huntley made the Final Four in the state of Illinois this year, and she's been a starter for them. And so we have a number of freshmen we think that can come in and help us. And so just going to be a young team, and there's a real excitement to that for me, and that's not just coach speak. I really am kind of excited to work with a really young, teachable group and get to mold and shape them a little bit.
Season starts with a big test Friday, August 26th at the defending champs, Spring Arbor. Home opener Saturday, September 3rd against Corbin out of Oregon. Coach, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Greg.